Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lake Superior Living Labs Network mini meetup on seeds. I'm recording this just by myself because I forgot to record the beginning portion, which was my own presentation. So I will record this and then stitch it together where Zachary picks up from the actual meeting with all of the people in the meeting there. And then you can watch the rest of the meetup together and pretty much have the same experience. So here we go. Sharing information about community seed saving as a contributor to social and ecological determinants of health. I'm Rachel Portinga and a PhD student of health sciences at Lakehead University and working on this project. So we're just going to go through a very brief background, methods, and participant demographics, and then get into the 3 preliminary themes that are coming out of this work. So just a little bit of background. This work is started before I was involved as an existing collaboration between Roots to Harvest, Superior Seed Producers, Lakehead University Agriculture Research Station, Lake Superior Living Labs Network, and the Sustainable Food Systems Lab. And those folks had been collaborating to do seed trials of spinach and carrots, radicchio, and peppers, growing them in the north, different varieties, measuring characteristics and seeing what grew best here. And then I was able to join into this collaboration through a research internship that I had to complete for the PhD program and was able to be hosted by Roots to Harvest for that internship. So I was able to add to this work by completing qualitative interviews with various food growers in the area in Northwestern Ontario, which you'll see in just a moment, and change the knowledge we have on that a little bit. The seed trials will continue in next year as well. Just a little bit of my positionality in relation to this work. I'm a settler woman here in Canada on a visa because I'm from the United States. And I am not a farmer or a seed saver, certainly not at the time of these interviews, although now I'm aspiring, certainly. And I've grown small garden plots in my backyard before, and I've worked at my CSA farms for multiple days. But I am by no means directly a farmer. And so I was new to the area and passionate about farming, but new to the topic. So that allowed me to really hear what participants were saying from their perspective. The aim of this project overall is in black text. Explore how food growers in Northwestern Ontario engage with food security, sustainable food production, well-being, and resilience through seed saving. And the question in blue text is the research question we're asked and are trying to answer today. What value do seeds contribute to well-being and resilience in Northwestern Ontario? And then you see more questions in gray, which we did ask and have some data to provide answers to those, but I will not explore that today. So methods, I did 21 interviews in the summer of 2020, and those were all folks that grew food. From there, I pulled data from 12 individuals who identified as current seed savers, and that's the data I'll talk about now. For each of these individuals, we did an interview either over Zoom or a phone call or outside in person, and they were audio recorded, and then I re-listened to them and did a quick transcribe of each, and then coded that and put that together to present it to Roots to Harvest staff, Superior Seed Producers members, and separately a peer student group. And then from each of those 3 presentations, I've received feedback and incorporated that into the data analysis. So right now I'm right in the middle of a thematic network analysis. And so I will present to you the preliminary information we have in just a moment. A few participant demographics here, just to orient ourselves. We had a pretty decent range of ages of seed savers, ranging from people in their 20s to people in their 90s. We had a pretty decent split between folks growing food for 20 years or less who are saving seeds and folks who are growing for 31 years up to 65 years. And this and is growing food, not specifically seed saving. And then I did not ask folks to identify their gender. So this graph on the top right represents only gender presentation, and 9 individuals presented as female and 3 presented as male. And we did ask them to self-identify their ethnicity, 11 participants being identified as white, and the 12th participant identified as white and Ojibwe. In terms of location, we see this map shows all of the participants, and then the black circles are highlighting where the seed savers, those 12 seed savers, were living, which is why the 3s are a little trickier to read because they're superimposed over another number. So we see a pretty decent split between folks saving seeds both in town, quote unquote, in Thunder Bay and in the surrounding areas. And then if we look at the right on the graph here, we see that all 12 of the seed savers were growing food and therefore saving seeds on their personal property. And then 3 of them were additionally growing on a market farm, and 2 of them were participating in what I've dubbed a neighbor share agreement, just meaning 2 or 3 households were working collectively to grow food on at least one household's property. And I interviewed one person within that share agreement. So I know you are all dying to know what the results are, just like this little friend. So we'll dive into our preliminary results. So in doing the interviews, I would always just frame the questions around seed saving. And you'll notice on the slide, I have it now as community seed saving. And that's because when looking at the data, we realized that this was more than just growing seed for myself and nobody else. People were saving seed as part of a greater community. And so we've, it can be adjusted, but the current definition we're working with for community seed saving refers to the collective knowledge and skills used to collect, conserve, exchange, propagate, and advocate for regionally adapted seeds as the foundation of an equitable and sustainable food system. So you'll see that community seed saving concept being used in the next slides. So 3 global themes that came out is that community seed saving supports physical well-being, supports mental and spiritual well-being, and also supports community and ecosystem well-being. So I have a slide to explore each of those 3 now. So the ways that community seed saving supports physical well-being was mostly into 2 sub-themes. One was that it led to more movement in people's lives, in the seed savers' lives, certainly more frequency, and then also at certain times of the year, increased intensity as well. The other sub-theme was that participants had an improved diet or improved food quality, both in reduced chemical consumption, but also in having a stronger plant-based diet, which they identified as positive. And that diet continuing in the winter months as well, their palate had sort of changed. And so that followed them throughout the year, not just in the growing season. This slide has a little bit more detail on it. So we'll start at the left. We're looking at community seed saving supporting mental and spiritual well-being here through 8 major mechanisms or sub-themes. Right now is where we're at. So the first is that community seed saving was therapeutic. Participants definitely identified it was therapy itself. It was meditative. It was peaceful. Community seed saving also led to lots of joyful emotions among participants. They were happy, they were joyful, they experienced love, they experienced awe and wonder. Community seed saving also helped participants manage their winter depression. For example, folks noticed or commented that in January and February, we're really getting into those deep winter months. It's been going on for a little while. There isn't a whole lot of daylight, but the process of growing and having your seeds, you're now preparing your seeds to become seedlings. You might even be planting them. You might be ordering a few or exchanging with friends, realizing what you don't have anymore. So that really helped motivate people to look forward to the next growing season, get started, look forward to those days, and really kind of pulling them out of that winter depression. Community seed saving also helped mitigate participants' mental stress about global ecological and social concerns. So folks are concerned about climate change and injustice and things like chemicals and GMOs, and a lot of those are large global issues, part of our global food system. And so by saving their own seeds and growing their own food from that seed, they were able to reduce their impact on that system and not contribute to it, at least not as much. And as such, we're able to mitigate their mental stress because they were able to live in such a way that did not contribute to those global systems in such large ways. Community seed saving also supported the ability to feel food secure and seed secure. Community seed saving promoted self-reliance and empowerment among participants, often naming it as such, but also promoting their sense of fulfillment. They were very proud and of the work that they had done and felt a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. And then also community seed saving provided opportunities for creativity. It provided opportunities for overcoming challenges, problem solving, which folks identified as useful to their mental health. They looked forward to those challenges and trying to overcome them. Also, our third global theme was that community seed saving supports community and ecosystem well-being. And so we'll start at the top here with our 4 sub-themes. The community seed saving act itself, that activity, reduces participants' ecological footprints and therefore contributing to ecosystem well-being. Moving left, community seed saving increased participants' connection to the land and really made them feel connected to both the human and more than human communities that they are a part of. And we could certainly argue this contributes, right? This interacts with their spiritual and mental well-being as well. Community seed saving built and strengthened participants' human communities and human networks. There was sharing of food, sharing of seeds, sharing of transplants, sharing of knowledge. There's lots of sharing interactions and strengthening those networks and communities that folks had with one another in the present day. And then also community seed saving allows for intergenerational knowledge sharing, role modeling, and connection. And participants noted that this happened both with kids and sharing this information, sharing knowledge with their own kids for the future. Also the idea of seed saving as preserving or conserving genetic material for the future, and also noting connections to their ancestors and those who had seed saved previously for our benefit today. So where do we go next? These are 2 major areas that we're still wrestling with or grappling with. One is that resilience is deeply interwoven into many of the themes I mentioned. Every time I try to put it in one spot, it ends up in 8 spots. It can't just be connected to one of those. It's really interwoven. And it's a core reason for community seed saving is for resilience, and a core outcome of the community seed saving is resilience. And when we look at resilience with community seed saving, it's resilience of individuals, resilience of communities, and resilience of the seeds themselves being adapted to this local climate and adaptable to climate change. So that's really deeply interwoven, and figuring out how best to frame and think about that is a question we're currently working on. And then the other area right now is the social and ecological determinants of health. And so they are interwoven into the previous themes, but I hadn't named them. And so trying to connect with that just a little bit more and flesh out where we're seeing those connections. I'd like to say a big thank you to Charles and Lindsay, who are my advisors and are continuing to help with this project at every step of the way. Kim, Jana, and all the Roots to Harvest staff who were very supportive and necessary for this project to take place, and their support was very meaningful and useful. And also the Superior Seed Producers members who are, leading the way with our local seed saving initiatives here in Thunder Bay and providing inspiration, and all of the participants who completed interviews with me for giving their time and energy and sharing space with me to learn about this. Thank you.
City area originally. When I was going to school for music composition, and I was just kind of realizing that after working on a farm one summer, my summer off, just wanted to have a deeper connection with the Mother Earth, and wasn't really getting that in big metropolis in New York City. So I thought my real dream was to move to a frozen tundra of a town of 300 people after my experience in New York. But I love New York. My family's there. But yeah, I was kind of driven to learn more about seed saving, the sustainable farm I worked on in Vermont, they didn't save their own seeds, and I was kind of wondering why. Also I was kind of curious about wild plants and why they're different from cultivated plants, and that kind of led me to the masses of plant breeding that I eventually got. So I ended up in White Land Recovery Project in 2012, about 8 years ago. Worked with Winona Duke in the Indigenous Farming Conference in White Earth. Helped out with the Upper Midwest Indigenous Seed Keepers Network and kind of help with the organization of that project. And I'll get to that a little bit more later on, what we're up to with rematriating the seeds. But yeah, I was just really felt even more like this is a direction of where I want to go after going there, and went to a week-long seed school where I learned everything seeds. That was done by Native Seed Search, and was even more interested. And we were working with organic potato trials in White Earth, and this was with the University of Wisconsin. But yeah, just the magic of seeds and seed saving is just really inspiring to me. Looking at these really close-up pictures of seeds, it's just the term abundance personified, from one handful of seeds or one seed to 100 to 10,000 to 100,000 in just a few years. I think like Jack and the Beanstalk is a true story where he traded his cow for just a handful of seeds. Where it's just amazing, the story of passing down seeds year to year, generation to generation. And these are just a few of these kind of miraculous, magical, or inspiring, I think, pictures that just enjoyable to just look at. And that comes from this book here, Seeds, Time Capsules of Life, kind of a good coffee table book, maybe. So yeah, seeds are adapting all the time into the hands of wherever they go. So the little teosinte plants above, originally from Oaxaca, Mexico, turned into this beast of a crop called corn, which has just made its way around the world, replacing traditional grains like millets and other grains that cultures have used for thousands of years, just throwing them away because corn is just so amazing. And this is one of the beautiful crops under our feet, growing for hundreds and thousands of years. Not hundreds of thousands, hundreds of years and thousands of years. But yeah, the migration of corn is just pretty miraculous, how it went up through North America and down through South America. And you know, we see here the agricultural history of the last 10,000 years of the adaptation of crops. And I think this will bring me into what Rachel was talking about with resilience, as well as a community where these seed stories kind of inspire as well. And we've got a Seed Stories podcast where you can listen to some of these. This was Sasha's Altai tomato, where seed keeper Bill McNorman went to Russia and under the Iron Curtain in, I think, 80s, where he was at a gathering, and this man Sasha was there, and they were doing some sort of seed swap or talking about their seeds, and Sasha said something in Russian, turned around and just started walking up his mountain. This is his village there. And the other translator said, that was Sasha, and he's got some seeds to share with you. And he literally went up and down a mountain that was 12 miles back and forth and came back like 6 hours later with those seeds. So that's how important those seeds were to Sasha, and that's how important and how much pride he had of sharing those seeds. It's a part of him, part of that community. This is Dave Christensen, someone I got to know 2014. Spent a few days in his trailer in northern Montana. It's really, really sweet and super intelligent man. And he bred together these 72 varieties of Native American corn. A lot of them don't exist in their, that you can't find them, but you can find them within this population. And he was invited, one of the few Americans that was invited to North Korea to help grow this corn that's resilient in their climate. So northern Montana is very mountainous and sandy and harsh and cold and short season. So if you could get something to thrive there, then you could pretty much get it to thrive almost anywhere. So, but other climates that are similar, like the mountains of North Korea and the mountains of Argentina, where there's starving people, Dave was invited to go and share thousands of pounds of the seed there. This is a Caroline Chartrand, another story. We sell this early scarlet horn carrot through North Circle Seeds, and this was one of the seeds that were used by the Indigenous community, the Métis. They're up and down this Red River Valley here, is French mixed with the Indigenous peoples here, and they had their own particular culture of jigging and dancing and Red River wagons. And she's Métis, and she was looking at the old seeds that they would grow, and she can find them in the seed catalogs. And actually, she found them at Seed Savers Exchange. There's a few handful of people that had these early scarlet horn carrots, and she got a few seeds. This was 2003. Not this picture. This picture is when we grew them out in 2014, but the last she grew them was 2003, and then she didn't grow them for a while, and now we're reviving them again with a bunch of people. So carrot, and this story is something of resilience, and here's us at over in Duluth area. David could tell me which farm it's I forget. Bianca Say, is it Bianca's? Yeah. So that's the carrot seed there. So it kind of just makes its rounds, and carrot's a really good one for that word resilience, or this story in particular, because they're kind of hard to grow. You could easily lose that seed if it didn't germinate well. It's hard to germinate, hard to grow. It's a biennial. You got to save the carrots and then plant those carrots out in the spring. The seeds come the second year, and then you got to dry them down and clean them, make sure they're stored right. Caroline had some growers up in Winnipeg that stored them in kind of like a moist area, and germination went downhill. So having a bunch of people growing out these rare and important varieties and collaborating on their stories and swapping their seeds back and forth, this is the way. That's the way that resilience is formed, and also this kind of attachment to the seed in a way. You're bringing something else into your community that's beyond just your relationship with the other person. It's the food, it's the seeds, and you can share this and share the responsibility of feeding each other and in action. So this is a magnificent popcorn. It's one that I grew and bred. It's my girlfriend Meg. So kind of just, this was a surprise. It was pinky popcorn with an interesting, another kind of popcorn from the USDA Grin Seed Bank. And that's all public access seed. And growing those together created these beautiful colors. So just in a few years, kind of named this variety as a new variety. And I'm just gonna jump ahead to the open source seed initiative, where you can see that logo at the top. And what they are is their initiative to be the antidote, let's just say, for anti-patents, where if you put a variety, if you're a seed breeder, organic seed breeder, you could put it through this process where you're creating a new variety, just like I did with that popcorn. And that variety is actually registered variety now with the open source seed initiative. And what they do is they say that nobody can restrict the genetics from anybody else. So you can save the seed, it's not a hybrid. And all these other seed companies are creating interesting new varieties that they're pledging, and it's a law-abiding contract pledge. You can see on the back of our seed packet here, we've got a pledge that's similar, but the popcorn is really pledged. And if you see that symbol, Teresa uses it, and name escapes me right now. Prairie Road Organic Seed, they have got a bunch of pledge varieties. So just going back to the seed industry structure, and just wave me when I'm getting close to maybe 1 minute warning. I don't know how close we are, but so yeah, Bayer is kind of the new monster. They're the new Monsanto, and just seeing how much they really own in terms of seed sales, which is well over 60% for 4 companies. That would, in the US, that would be a monopoly. It would be illegal, but in the world, there's no regulatory agency, so this happens, and there's a huge monopoly over our seed system. So this is kind of the antidote, right? Where there's just these regionalized seed companies or seed sheds or seed co-ops, what David's doing out in Finland. Like, this is like what is important, and this is what's necessary to kind of go against that tide of the seeds being owned by these mega corporations, businesses. And this is what happens when those businesses grow. And you could follow the line down. So if we take lettuce, 497 varieties in 1903 to 80 years later, where there's only 36. So this is part of that resilience. So if we have those 36 and we're working with a bunch of people to restore those and grow them out, not only for the keeping that diversity of varieties, which is important for different diseases and adapting to different parts of our country and regions and microregions, but and flavor and all that, but it's also important that we also have fun and do those kinds of breeding projects. And when things do cross-pollinate, that's also a good thing too. And just looking at organic farming, we became organic last year. We're already doing everything organic, so it's just about the money at that point, and I suppose the time to fill out all that paperwork. But thought might as well, because we always get the question, like, are we organic? And I don't want to say yes, but we're not certified, so it's just easier to just say, yeah, we're organic. But you can see every one of these documents, the 2017 Census of Ag, these are all public, you can find them all, and they're all going like this, that curve, they're all going up. So organic, the consumer demand for organic is just going up and up and up. So to hold that standard to our own regionalized organic or small scale organic, I think is important, and keep those standards for whether a farm is organic or not. Just thinking of the ecosystem as an important part of the system, which is essential to organic. Here's a North Circle farm. It's me and some corn. We got some squash, and what's the funny looking plant in front of the squash is kale that's going into storage. Those are the stecklings, and then the next year, this year, we're gonna grow out those plants and they'll become seeds. So growing for seed is like a little bit different than just growing. There's a lot of other considerations to take in with selection and biennials and space in the field is a lot different. When a lettuce is grown or a lettuce goes to seed, it's a massive plant when it goes to seed. So thinning out and spacing is a consideration. And I think maybe we'll end here if I'm running low on time, but why be part of a regionalized seed keeping network? So like Rachel was saying, increase resiliency of our local seed systems, regionalizing specific crops that we're interested in. It's kind of cool to see a lot of people interested in the same crops. It's fun to talk about the story of growing them and how they work for different people, like this butternut that we grow. That seems to work really well in Minnesota. That came from a Minnesota grower, and yeah, increase seed plant food diversity. Yeah, it's profitable. So at least with North Circle Seeds, I'm able to, it's not like tons of money, but it's like another enterprise. Like, you're going to the farmer's market and you might make, if it's a good week, maybe you'll make $500 at the farmer's market, maybe more if you're a big producer. But yeah, some of these, if you're going for seed, some of these, if you get enough seed, like a pound of eggplant seed might be $300. But say you grow 3 or 4 of those, and then you're up to $1,000. So, and as we get bigger, we'll have an increase in seed amount, and then be able to supply even more funding. Closing the loop of sustainability, that's just seed saving, saving your own seed. You don't have to spend more money to buy new seed. So looking at open pollinated seed versus hybrid seed that you could actually save yourself. All the seed that we sell is open pollinated, meaning, or heirloom, meaning you could actually save the seed yourself, and we do education on that. Growing together, eating together. And I like that we're like a Minnesota seed company where we could get together every year feasibly. It might take 4 hours, it might take 6 hours, but you know, it's doable. And different from a lot of other seed companies where they have growers throughout the country, it's nice to have these parties like Harvest Party. We're going to do Deep Roots Party over here in Vergas, get together, talk about everything in person. After COVID's over, we'll have a big jubilee, I think, music and dancing and all that. And
like
diverse
1 or 2
cultural
more
foods.
minutes, Zach?
There's a lot
Is
of
that
diverse
okay?
culture. 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, diverse cultural foods. So many diverse cultures right here in Minnesota. So my thought is like not just growing the seed for saving the seed and growing the seed, because that's good to do to keep this diversity, but growing actual varieties that work for foods that farmers can depend on, like with the Hmong community, African community. We're growing a bunch of Congolese African eggplants, and I felt really good that the Oregon Seed Bank, they do a bunch of really great work. They asked for something like 13,000 of those seeds, and they're going to give those out to a Congolese refugee. So projects like that, or just growing out seeds that, you know, of foods that opening our horizons of different kinds of foods and trying different kinds of foods with people from different cultures is just fun to do, and great to know your neighbors and people and communities within Minnesota. And yeah, telling our seed and food stories, and I'm sure all sorts of other reasons. You don't need to know it all. This good book, Seed the Seed, they call the Seed Saving Bible. The organic seed growers, maybe like Seed the Seed is like beginner's edition, or it kind of has it all, but then organic seed grower kind of gets to a little bit more specifics. John Navazio talked about seed stories at Suwico, and went to Oaxaca, Mexico, and this is kind of getting to that diverse communities, diverse foods. We were growing the ají peppers, the blue corn that came from Mexico, making tortillas, and African eggplants. And seed breed maturation with the 3-step process is getting the seeds from the Science Museum Minnesota, growing those seeds out, making sure they grow. There's so many seeds that we want to make sure that they're interesting and they kind of have good qualities to them. And then once we figure that out with the community that they might be going to, say if it's this Mandan squash right in the middle of the page, we were able to give back a couple hundred, or probably a couple thousand actually, seeds of that back to the Mandan community. So that was a project that I was involved in from 2013 to 2017, and we still grow out a lot of these older seeds from that science museum. Dream of Wild Health is doing a lot of that work right now, but I still have a lot of the corn that we're growing out. This is part of my day job, White Earth Mobile Market. We grow out traditional foods from White Earth and sell as a grocery store. So that's it. North Circle Seeds. Yeah, we're a Minnesota organic vegetable seed company, and and we've got about 50 varieties, and looking to maybe have something like 60 or 70 next year, just to kind of have the full catalog of melons and watermelons and whatnot that we'll add. But yeah, we're interested to hear any questions and discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Zachary. That was awesome. Love all the work you're doing. Thanks so much. Yeah, hold on to your questions, folks. You can put them in the chat now or just keep them in your mind. We're going to turn it over to David. Great, go for it.
All right, so I'm going to try and do this quick so we have time for question and answer. I'm just contacting you from Finland, Minnesota, Round River Farm. This is a picture of our farm. Ironically, I'm also from just outside New York City, grew up there, and moved here 33 years ago by picking it on a map. And so as we look at our farm, we've also been part of, a lot of training of next generation farmers, but also starting an aquaponic farm for the city of Silver Bay along the shore, Wolf Ridge Organic Farm, which is designed to grow all the vegetables for the school there, 160,000 meals, 0 this year, and also helped contribute to the starting of the Agroecology Center. The cool thing is we have Stefan Meyer here from the Agroecology Center. So if we have Q&A, any questions on that, I'm going to ask him to step in. My work is with the Northeast Regional Sustainable Development Partnership. I got hired 2 years ago, first time healthcare by the University of Minnesota. And it's a citizen-based process. The citizens vote and make policy and direct the direction. We have a crew out of UMD. We also focus on 4 areas: agriculture, resilient communities, natural resources, and clean energy. And so the principles we use is our partnerships is trying to connect communities with universities. And it all has to come from a community champion, a leader. And sustainability is the lens in which we look at these projects. We're in the process of gathering ideas. We had almost 30 project ideas come to our region. We're down to 22 for full proposals, and we don't give a lot of money, but we give some money, but hopefully a lot of connections and a lot of value by connecting with the university. One of the neat projects we got to work with was North Circle Seed with Zachary. This is him at the Two Harbors education session and also threshing with a farmer in southern Minnesota, and working on stories. So we really want to be coordinated and connected with all of the different parts going on. One of the parts that was going on at the same time, Zachary started working with us in Northeast, was the Finland food chain, and Stefan is also the manager of that project here in Finland, Minnesota. First thing we did, we went to Seed Savings Exchange under the idea of let's start a farmer seed saving co-op. And we got training. One of the best things we learned there is that we actually knew enough to get started. And so that was really helpful. 6 farmers, 5 different farms went to the event. And we then did a class. Zachary came on over to help participate in the seed class. Again, I just added your phrase, Rachel, community seed saving, that idea of that broader concept of seed saving, which has really resonated with me. The other neat thing about the Finland food chain is the Wild Rice Project. One of the cool things about this is we're looking to build a facility. And so we're going in an old school, looking at updating it. And what's cool about this is it's also opportunity for small grains and seed processing. So this will enable us. In fact, I'm growing many more crops now this year for seed saving because I'm hoping this should be ready by August 1st. So some of the same equipment that will be used in wild ricing, we can adapt and use for seed saving. And this would offset the wild rice season with other grains. So we're growing 5 different barleys, and Stefan's growing some barleys. And so we're doing some testing on that. On Round River Farm, and I'm almost done, we're expanding now, going to be growing more and more in our plots for seed saving. This is an example of last year's lettuce, and then being able to grow a lot more lettuce than you need, but then selecting for the right quality to type and timing. So we don't gather the seed from the first ones that go to bolt because we don't want to encourage early bolting, but we don't gather seeds from the last one. We gather them from the middle group and then make sure there's enough individuals to get that broad genetics. So this is as it goes further along to seed. Beans, mostly we're doing dried beans. Also solstice broccoli, which will be growing a lot more. We love this. It's not a best commercial variety because you plant it once and it'll pop a good head this 1 week, and then another week there'll be 3 different heads, and then a 4th week another head. And so it's a perfect garden crop because it gives you crops over time. And they were big, really big. So we're really looking forward to growing a bigger patch of this. We're going to grow a bigger patch of the delicata. That's from Zachary's line. So we saved seed from last year, and we're going to plant a lot more this year to try and get bigger bulks of these beautiful delicata that tasted really great and produced in our short season. You have to understand our season is as short as 33 days between frosts. Our latest frost was July 15th, and that same year we had a frost August 18th. Now, climate change, yeah, it might be different. A few years ago, we had August 23rd. It's just more radical and more crazy to manage all this. So I just wanted to give a real primer. Zach was the main theme, and Rachel gave some context, and I hope we can lead right into some great talks and subjects.
Thanks, everyone. That was awesome. Also, we might have the best pictures. Like, there's something about finding pictures for seed presentations where you're like, oh, nothing here is terrible. Okay, awesome. We're open for questions. We've got, 14 minutes. So I'm happy for people to just unmute and ask, or feel free to put it in the chat.
So I have a question. This is Randy for Zach. And just in terms, if I can sort of barge into the economics of this, has it been, or when do you expect it to become economically self-sustaining, given, these are the challenges of local and regional food systems to launch projects that go beyond our passions and our grants, right? And I'm curious how that is coming along for you, because you're doing such amazing work.
Thanks. Yeah, I think my mindset is like exactly that, trying to make it the funding and kind of meet the need. And so I'm thinking of it in this business type of way, a small business type of way, or small enterprise business. So seeds is a good business model, because from one head of lettuce at the farmer's market or the store, how much would you get? I don't know, at most maybe $5 if it's beautiful and huge, or I don't know. I actually don't know the most you could get from it, but with seed, you could probably get 100,000 seeds or something like that, or something crazy. Maybe not 100,000, but a lot of seed from a head of lettuce. So the model within itself, selling seeds, is a doable thing if we're smart about it, and we could crack the code of like getting all these seeds cleaned and stored. That's the other thing, because one of my friends who has a small seed company was saying it's all about storing the seed, right? Because I could sell the seed for up to 5 years if it germinate. I mean, I germination test it every year, and I'm not going to sell seed like below a certain threshold that I'm not comfortable with, especially if it's something that's supposed to germ high. But some of the seed, like corn will stay 99 to 97% germination for 2 or 3 years. So these are just some of the tricks of the trade to just be able to become profitable and sell a bunch of varieties. And then just from our experience, you know, last year, I think COVID helped seed companies across the board in a way. Probably helped small seed companies like ours even more because the bigger ones are selling out. So we've doubled our profits, more than that from last year. I think we're expecting that anyway because we have 30 more varieties this year. But I'm saying like I'm thinking like in another year or two we'll become sustainable, and then overall 3, 4, 5 years from now we'll become pretty profitable as a one employee situation, given I'll be hiring people with the farm, and then as seed production wise, like I was saying, like we've got a really good, that I could share a list of how much people could potentially make from producing seed for North Circle Seed, and it's only ever going to really be like a handful of people, but so I guess I'm just talking in the North Circle Seeds because that's what I know. But as a one full-time employee, I think maybe leading to a 2 full-time employee, and then a bunch of people supporting a bunch of people, either helping out or producing seed, with the estimation of, you know, thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars, but in the lower range of maybe something up to $10,000 out to producers in the next 3 to 10 years. I'd estimate that, if that kind of gives a perspective of it.
Thanks for the question, Randy, and answer it, Zachary. Charles, I see your hand is up.
Hi. Excuse me. Thanks so much for your presentations. Really, really interesting to see what's happening in kind of different places, but all sort of the same place in an odd way, which kind of leads to my question around, and it's, you know, in some ways, I guess the premise of this is that seeds are so much based in like a local place, right? Like the soil matters, the climate matters, the techniques you're using, like everything is so place-based. And at the same time, you know, seeds throughout history have moved in different places, and we've seen, like, you know, even before, you know, the modern economy, I mean, seeds were brought from different, you know, to different places. And actually, what's interesting up here in Thunder Bay, there were some anthropologists that actually found corn seed, like that predate European settlement, which is, you know, maybe not, shouldn't be surprising, but it means that, you know, people were trading seed well before, you know, the white people got here. And I guess the question I wanted to ask you, maybe all three of you, is like, do you see opportunity to kind of connect or network or share like around this kind of Lake Superior watershed as a way to, I mean, I'm hoping the question is yes, but I guess my question more is around like recognizing the kind of importance of the kind of place-based context of seeds and the opportunity to connect with each other in different places. Like, what does that look like, and how, I mean, I'm really trying to wrestle with, like, I know Rachel is too, like, how do we do this? Like, what does it look like to connect kind of seed networks from different places? Yeah, to different places. That's my question.
Well, I guess I'll start. I think that is the dream, right? Is to build a food system that's based on locality and relationships between. We have a challenge of a legal border that unfortunately separates us from, you know, here on the North Shore with the further North Shore up in Canada. But I think at least the people doing this are going in with that mind. Zachary, even though it's a for-profit company, he's got this whole community-based type approach that I think a combination of relationships and a grounding and an exchange between people to people with these incredible gems of seeds that create life, I think is essential. And I think we need to continue to build those systems and structures so that we can share resources, whether it's storage, whether it's processing equipment, those types of things. And so, yeah, so I think that's essential, and it should be a point of pride. And basically, ideally, we wouldn't need to buy any seed at all from anywhere outside our region. And that would be the ideal, where the people, again, control and own the seed source as we move forward.
Zachary, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're from Canada, Charles. Yeah, I would say two things up front, like working with the Indigenous Farming Conference. This woman, inspiring seed keeper, Terry, I don't know if you know Terry Lynn Brandt from Mohawk. She's like really just like gung-ho with the J Treaty. She like just shows up at the border with seeds, and she's got a fighting spirit. So she's just gonna be like, I'm going over the border with these seeds, like try and stop me. And she usually gets her way, which is amazing. I would say something else too, and yeah, getting to know Terry Lynn and how she does it. She might have certain things that she cites from the J Treaty. In terms of sharing seed legally, it is a bit of a chore. It's not totally, I mean, it can be done, phytosanitary certificates on both ends and coordination and time. It's annoying with the time that it takes to get that all figured out, but it is doable. And then I would say like our project with the early scarlet horn carrot is that I suppose mailing seeds or not, you know, getting them across without that certificate. But even if you did, Caroline was in Winnipeg, and Tiffany Travers is another grower, a Ojibwe grower in Winnipeg, and then I got the seeds. So it only really took like one mailing or transfer of the seeds. So once I had a bunch of seeds and they had a bunch of seeds, like they're growing it all in Canada, we're growing it all down here, and we're both creating these networks amongst ourselves. And then now all we have to do is talk about it. Because like we could continually share seed, which would be great for the population, but it's not really necessary. If that one transfer of seed gave enough seeds for the genetics of that variety to thrive, then it's all about creating that network in the US as well as the Canada. And then mainly what we're doing at that point is just sharing the stories and experiences of what we're up to, which is what happened with that carrot. So it's doable. And then I guess the other thing I would say is work on maybe like one project at a time, because like that carrot seed is just, it took a bunch of energy to like get it really to a point where like from a couple hundred seeds to a couple thousand seeds in the hands of 3 or 4 people in Canada and 3 or 4 people in the US. It took about 5 years to get to that point with just one variety. So maybe picking out a project or two of like a specific interesting variety of corn, like you're saying, and then just doing kind of like a concentrated project on getting those to the point where you're not just growing the seeds for seeds, but growing them in a food system as a goal. I actually have a slide, if I could share my screen just for Randy. So I got this from the Organic Seed Alliance. So just kind of as an idea, I could share this. This was so useful for me, as you could tell, for a seed company. Like, what do I charge people? What's like the normal pricing? And so I got this just a month or two ago. But it's nice because it has the Nature Nurture Seeds, which is a smaller seed company, and then Seed Savers and I'm Mowing, which are bigger seed companies. So it kind of has this nice range of small to big on some of these crops that are pretty, everybody knows these crops. So,
And I think
but I could share that. What was that?
The economics that you're talking about, Zachary, is shifting to seed production shifted us in how we prioritize our work. But to cull down the lettuce, we sold heads of lettuce. We just didn't sell the perfect ones. We sold the good ones. And so we were able to sell the whole bed of lettuce minus 20 plants that we were holding for seed. And so in that way, there's still pretty good economics. We didn't do a lot of seed saving when we were just commercial because the lens was different. But now that we have the lens of seeds, now we can do commercial around that. So certain things are better for that than others.
Yeah, exactly. Doing a little of both. And yeah, if you are selling market, like sell the market food and then the seed behind it. And you could say, hey, we got this seed too of this amazing.
That's exactly what I do. On my little farm at Bear Haven, I started as a market garden. And then when I began seed saving, it just sort of organically with a small O happened that I realized, well, I'm saving these ones for seeds and these other specimens that were the wrong size or shape or were looking like going to seed too early or whatever. If they were marketable, not the ones that were going to seed, but just the ones that I wasn't saving for seed, my garden became much more profitable.
Great. Thanks for sharing, everyone. This is awesome. I realize we're 1 minute before 3 o'clock here, or 2 o'clock if you're in Central Standard Time. So we have reached the end of our session. So thanks to everyone who presented and shared. Thanks for all the questions. It sounds like people have ideas percolating, which is exciting. And I'm sure we'll continue to stay in touch, but I'll let you go and get to the rest of your day. I put it in the chat. Our next network event is on the weekend of March 27th and 28th. It's the Duluth Power Dialogue. And so more details and invites will come to that later. But thanks for being here today.
Thanks. Really
Thanks,
great.
Rachel.
Interesting.
Thanks,
Rachel.
everyone.
Thanks.
All right. I will end for all. Well, I
Thank you,
will stop.
Rachel.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.